Casper, even if you have to drop off, you will be remembered fondly, my friend.
Sounds like I'll make sure of that.
Funeral, but no, you'll be remembered fondly for your thought leadership. We will inscribe it on your grave. That's what every podcaster wants.
I'm not dropping out like that.
Does it mean when I create the graphic for the podcast, I need to take Casper's little snippet and make it black and white?
No, actually, I think
in Germany for deceased people.
A fun thing for this would be everybody's announcements of their names would be on their own headstones. That's fantastic.
Yeah, that would be cool. Yeah, with some kind of like quote or what they said.
Yeah, exactly. A Halloween special for all.
But the Casper Jans fondly remembered.
Fondly remembered, but left early.
I know exactly what would be on one. It says, "I've been James Ernson. I'm going to see you in the next one."
That would, you know what? Honestly, that would be a great sign off for me as a human being. I like that.
Yeah. Welcome to the What's Your Baseline podcast, where we demystify enterprise architecture and business process management.
We're here to bring best practices and lessons learned from our years to your ears, as well as interviewing friends we met along the way on our professional journeys.
My name is Roland Volt, and I'm joined today by my co-host, James Ernson. Hey, JM, how are you doing today?
I am doing fantastic, Roland. Hooray! This is a special episode, and I'm so excited for everyone to see it. And also a huge congratulations back to you, Roland. How are you feeling today?
I feel better because I brought some reinforcement, and I have 4 friends with me who will help me to fight against your harassments in this podcast. I endured it for 99.5 episodes.
Boy.
I think we're doing good, but I'm also happy because this is our, believe it or not, 100th official full-length episode. So I think that's quite a milestone.
It is. And I'm really happy to be here, Roland. When you came to me 4 years ago, 5 years ago, something like that, and we had a conversation about what this could be, I had not conceived of it being this much work. I thought it was going to be easy, a couple of shows, and then just like, it was fun. We tried it out. But 100 episodes later, plus all these shorts, plus all the things we've done outside of the podcast, I can't be happier, my friend. Thank you so much for this really cool opportunity. And here's to even more. But besides my experience, we have some incredible folks on the show who themselves have their own legacies of written in podcast history. And Roland, I'd love it if you were to introduce some of our fantastic guests today as we get started with our show.
So shall I take over the German names because it's hard for you? Or
absolutely.
How do you want me to handle this? All right.
Yeah, so we had some names that are difficult to pronounce, and I have butchered them. So please, how about you go?
Yeah, but that is the fun part of it, So maybe without further ado, in no special sequence, let's start with the Austrian in the room, Christoph Piller. Hallo, Christoph, wie geht's?
Hello, I'm fine. Thanks for welcoming me to your 100th episode. And congratulations also from my side. It's awesome, actually.
Aw, thanks, Ryan.
Yeah, and you've been here before, so you're part of our little success that we had. Speaking of having been here before, we have one guest who hasn't been here before, which is Daniel Matka. Hallo Daniel, wie geht's dir?
Hi, mir geht's sehr gut. Thanks for having me. I'm fine. Thanks.
All right, and then with those two guys, for those who don't recognize the voices, they are 2/3 of the Prozess Philosophen podcast, and which is an up and coming, I guess, episode 60 something where you are right now.
70, so you're not 75 already.
70
up and coming. Yeah, I was 75 episodes.
Either way, so long story short, both have some experience with this medium, and we thought it would be a good idea because you can't stand on one leg. Right? Just invite another podcast, and for that we do have Russell Gomersall from the BPM360 podcast, and he was already on the show. Welcome back, Russell. How are you doing today?
Hi, thanks a lot for inviting me. Yes, and actually 75 episodes. Also, congratulations to you, Prozess Philosophen. We, Casper and me, are the juniors here in the round. We only have around 50 episodes, but we do look the oldest. And I must say, what's your baseline has always been my role model, for everything you do. I've taken the haircut of Roland, and I've tried to take the specs and the humor of JM, and I've combined this into this unique force that we're now trying to bring to our podcast. You see, Casper has a similar approach to this thing. Thanks for having us on the show.
Yeah, and then last but not least, and I'm super impressed by his AI skills, Caspar Jans, who I think is it the third time that you're on the podcast?
I think it's the fourth time, actually.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah. Two separate trips and the one with Russell. And so this is number 4.
Yeah, you're part of the inventory.
Happy to be here. Yeah.
You're almost 5 timers club, my friend. One more and you get the big badge.
How many people are in that club? That would then just be me, I guess.
Yeah. Well, JM and I are also in that club.
Yeah, of course.
So we get some tattoos, the next time.
Yeah, that's true. But no, listen, guys, really happy to be included in this celebratory episode. I couldn't be happier for you guys. And of course, really congrats also to the Prozess Philosophen 75. That's also an impressive number. We're coming up to 50. Which is also approximately the average age of the hosts in our show, which is by far the oldest in this 3 that we have here. No, but I'm super stoked to be here today. So thanks for having me.
Well, thank you guys for joining us. Listen, we put out the call. We love what you guys do, and we're glad to get a chance to chat with you more about it, and also sort of how you've come up, what you've learned along the way, and a bonus special secret end for this episode. So we'll get it right into it. And I'll just put it over to Christoph and Daniel. Let's talk a little bit about what you do. So give you a couple seconds to pitch Prozess Philosophen and what you're trying to talk about, what's different about it, what sort of motivates you to create the way you do.
So I think it started in Munich in a restaurant where Matos, Daniel and me just met. And we have done a kind of bullshit bingo. So we just shouted out buzzwords we have known from LinkedIn, and we had totally fun about it. And then we said, hey, we have to create a podcast about it so that the world knows what are just buzzwords or only buzzwords, and what is the real value behind BPM, behind process automation, and behind AI. And that's how it started, actually. And we just talked with Casper and Russell in one of our latest episodes about it, which is not yet released, actually. But at the end of the day, the thing where we said we want to distinguish us of your podcast, JM and Roland, of the BPM360 podcast, is that we would like to have included this fun part, so that it's not too serious, that we overturn stuff, that we talk a lot about the so-called LinkedIn highness, which are the real cool people on LinkedIn.
We'll have to take that off.
This raises not questions. Funny. Yeah, so I like your charm, how you subtly, weave in your criticism into your thing.
That was a deep blow. I would have said the only thing that distinguishes you is that you're speaking German, which really makes you special. No, but seriously, no humor. That hurts me. I'm going to start crying.
It hurts, yeah.
And Daniel, tell me about your experience and perspective. I mean, what has it been like to grow and create something like this repeatedly up to the episode 75 already?
Yeah, honestly, I'm every time the youngest guy in the room if we're speaking about BPMN and so on. So, and it's fun to have like different views, different stories. A lot of process management is about the people and the story behind the people. And we have the opportunity, or I think a little bit the luck that the network is quite cool and has a lot of stories. That's why we started last year. We had just 2 microphones without any kind of crazy good quality. I have a little bit of music background. That's why it was easy to cut the podcast. And honestly, without any kind of expectations, we started the whole story. And looking 1 year back now, after 75 episodes, JM, I have to really, I'm 100% on your side. It was way more work than ever expected, but it's worth it. So it's cool. And yeah,
I'm glad
happy
you're
to
loving
be
it.
in this bubble.
Hey, listen, we love it too. And Roland, you know the guy as well from BPM360. So guys, what you, maybe our audience, if they didn't tune into your episode, they'd like to hear a little bit more about it. So let's start with Russell and then pass it over to Casper. Tell me a little bit more about the BPM360 podcast. What did you set out to do? And what do you think makes your content unique in the market and a reason why people, once again, for 50 episodes, have been coming to see what you do, hear what you do, and listen to the thought leadership you provide?
Well, actually, it sounds quite similar to what Christoph and Daniel were saying about their origins, that Casper and I used to meet regularly somewhere when he was traveling at the Düsseldorf airport or wherever we could get together. And we would have this real deep talk about process management, about the challenges we see on the market, around the new technologies. So there was it was always great to just get together with somebody that had so many good ideas, but also seen a lot of things happening on the market, and to have a real good, deep exchange. And that was actually also the starting point where we said, okay, we should get more people involved. We should share more of these discussions on a platform where practitioners in the companies sometimes they're very isolated. So I think a community thing around BPM is a big thing. They struggle, they have the uphill battles and all this. I say, God, wouldn't it be good to actually, to get people on board to say, you are not alone. And I remember it also reminded me, and I've had Casper on some company events regularly. And there was one customer, and he gave it the best name. He said, this is German now, Selbsthilfegruppe BPM. Yeah. So it's like the anonymous alcoholics for BPM, enthusiasts. Yeah. And I think that's something of the spirit that we've also been bringing in. And, Christoph, we do have a lot of fun, when we meet up, but maybe for the outsider, it sounds like, oh God, the nerds again talking about it. No, but seriously, we try to cover every angle. That's one thing. We do try to look beyond also our view on things. That's why we like to have guests on board as well. And definitely we need to get you guys on board more. Because I see that you cover a lot of, say, the automation space as well around BPM. I think we are a lot on the business process, as Casper would say, documentation side. I say management side, and and the architectural aspects of it in the context of large transformations. But as I said, we're really open and want to see all the different twists and turns to BPM.
And Casper, your experience, I mean, obviously from getting together and sort of turning to just being friends to turning this into something that's a podcast, the romance of finding a thought leader partner here. Tell me a little bit more about what that experience was for you. I mean, had you thought you wanted to continue? Because I know you do the Weekly Extraordinaire, like you have your own thought leadership channels. What does this one mean different to the ones you already have available?
I would describe it as a bromance from that perspective. I've met Russell. I remember that we talked about this not too long ago. We met at a BPM conference in Berlin years ago. I think it was 2014. I was there to present on behalf of the company I worked for at that time, DSM. He was there supporting a customer that he was working with, and we clicked. And I started doing presentations at Russell's company's customer days. And then they had their 10-year anniversary. And then I found out I actually presented on like 6 or 7 of them out of the 10. So, and every time that we would get together somewhere, we would have very good conversations. And then at a certain point in time, Russell comes to me and says, Casper, we need to do a podcast. Mm. And it took me about 2 seconds to think about that and say, we should. And of course, I was listening to the What's Your Baseline podcast, really, really good stuff on there. And we said, we just need to do it as well. And we focused certainly in the first couple of episodes, we focused on what are the pitfalls of implementing process management. That was season number 1. It's just Russell and me just, basically giving all the content and experience that we've accrued over the years, giving it back to the audience. And then we started including guests, as we thought, people probably will be bored of just me and Russell now.
By the way, Caspar, you seem to be a slow thinker. It took JM 0.3 milliseconds to say yes, and you took 2 full seconds to agree to this. Come on, man.
He considers his decisions before jumping in. That's a different thing we have.
That's also true.
I'm with JM here. Yeah,
fair. But what I like, obviously, doing this for more than 4 years now, and I don't want to be too self-gratulatory, but I think we were one of the first podcasts in that space. I'm obviously interested in seeing, okay, how do other people evolve, right? And I remember Daniel and Christoph, that my first impression when I listened to a podcast is like, oh, these are 3 dudes on a Monday evening, who have way too much time at their hands and talking trash, and which was fun, to be quite honest. Otherwise, I wouldn't have listened, right? But I think you've evolved in your content. You got more structure now, and similar to Russell and Caspar, even though they were more structured in the beginning, on this. But tell us a little bit about your evolution and of the podcast. And I don't want to call anyone out here. So whoever wants to talk talks. Where do you see this medium going? Do you think it's just like, okay, now JM has that label and JM is the every other Monday guy and you need to check the boxes and this is the structure and this is what we're going to do? Or how did your evolution go and where do you think your respective shows will evolve into?
I think for the Prozess Philosophen, it is a quite interesting story because after the 3rd or 4th episode, so Daniel and Matos and myself, we figured out, okay, we still have to kind of get to know each other, how to do it, how to divide the speaking time, etc. And only, I don't know, Daniel, if you can remember exactly, but I guess only after the 7th or 8th episode, we really had the feeling, okay, now it made click. So now we really have the feeling how we gonna act virtually to each other. And then we started out different methods, different games, and everything. And I don't know, Daniel, after the 25th, 30th episode, this structure came in with our end, with the middle part, with stuff like this.
It's like, please delete the first 10 episodes. So they are trash.
They are not that bad. Come on.
Plus, like from the content side, which is really important. For you need just like an identity. You need topics because it's not cool to speak every week about the same topic. Plus, also we had a lot of feedback from our community, which was like really, really important for us. We are mainly community driven and not topic driven, which is like, I think this is like a potential differentiation that we are not focusing on topics. We are just really focusing on what the community is doing or what are current news. And from the technical side, for me is podcast unbelievable important that you have like a really good quality in media, like audio quality, because if you have like a bad car and the audio quality from the podcast is also bad, it's like double bad. It's like, oh no, please. So the medium must be really, really high quality. And what I'm seeing, it's currently podcasting is currently like, it was 1 or 2 years ago, it was just like an add-on to have a video inside a podcast. Now it's like not a must-have, but I think in 1 or 2 years it's a must-have to like that also podcast is evolving. And let's see. I'm really curious and happy to see the evolution. From my side, honestly, I learned so much. I had really fun times in the podcast. I had a lot of long nights with like cutting and struggling with Spotify and also. So yeah, it's cool. It was like a cool story.
We had in our show as well, Roland. You and I had a lot of, just to jump in a little bit, a lot of conversations about what we wanted to do from a video perspective. You know, Daniel, you and I think we share the burden of having to cut this thing together, and the difference between cutting video and cutting audio is like a factor of 2 for me. Like, yes. I don't know if it's the same for you. Like it's at least twice as long to cut a video than a piece of audio, even if I'm using the same time cues, because there's a lot more to take care of. And using a different tool, I used to use a digital audio workbench that was kind of like mediocre but fine, but it only handled audio. And now I'm using Premiere Pro, which is just a whole mouthful of of commands I need to learn, and buttons, and and like different types of transitions and stuff. It becomes a whole like audio and video editing discipline that is separate but also important to produce a piece of BPM content, which is such a weird thing. So that's a cool thing to learn. And also, I think, Roland, your original your push for video was correct. I think your assumptions were correct. I mean, what have you seen from the move to a video podcast from our first version of?
Yeah, we see about 25% more with just adding YouTube with videos, you know. But I think people are just used to this right now. You know, what we're thinking is about how do we change the format, the edit, you know, all those things, because JM and I have larger plans besides the podcast, you know, without spoiling it.
Okay.
But obviously it's includes another evolution of skills and concepts to say, okay, hey, how do we do this now? You know, how do we produce an attractive product that people will like? You know, which is not just talking heads, I don't want to say bubble heads, but talking heads babbling into a microphone. But
the last thing, which is I think really important to say in this topic, is I don't want to be like too judgy, but we are all in the round which are doing it like a sidekick. It's more like a hobby. It's like more a passion. And this is a main topic. How much you can spend and invest into a like podcast, video cast, or how do you want to call it? Because to have like audio equipment is expensive, but it's affordable. To have video equipment and everything setting up that this is really a cool product, this is a different story.
Yeah, and also I think about the time cost, right? Like, you know, for me, honestly, buying a microphone for like $300-400 is not that expensive, but spending 8 hours on something, like, that's a very expensive proposition. If I have to take that time away from like my regular job, that's more expensive than a piece of audio equipment. So it's a question of how you balance your capital expenditures versus the time expenditures, your sweat equity into this thing. And I want to pass it back to Russell and Casper. Tell us about that evolution and what sort of effort it's taken you to get to this place where you can create repeatable like episodes people want to see.
I'll kick off first because Russell tends to speak very long. No offense, Russell.
Things you've learned.
Well, I knew that was coming. I knew that was coming.
We both like to talk. No, but I think Russell and I took a slightly different approach. Not from the topic perspective, because we knew covering every angle means we can go in any direction that we want, as long as it's loosely connected to process management, which is a lot actually. So that's fine. But we also knew that outside of the recording slots, we would have zero time to do anything on it. So we don't do extensive edits and cuts. We record in one take and that's it. So we never stop. We never pause. If there is something wrong in it, we simply push it out. It's a human effort. So we're using the same platform as you do for recording, at least by now. We used just Zoom and Teams earlier, but this works better. Yeah. And it produces the audio file, and that's what we push out, period. It produces the video file, which we upload to YouTube, and in the future, I think to Spotify directly. And that's it. I hardly do. My editing takes about 10 minutes because I need to add the intro, the outro, and a visual. I do it in a free open source tool called KDN Live, and that's it. Because we know we don't have the time, and probably you don't have the time either, but you dedicated to it. We said it needs to be really simple for us if we want to maintain this over a longer period of time. which we are now doing. But we started a year and a half ago, and we're getting close to episode 50.
Crazy.
Yeah, but if I might chime in before Russell will take us out for the rest
Good
of the
luck
episode.
with that.
I think the effort is, and it sounds like that the effort would be the editing part of it, right? That's actually not the drivers. The drivers are figuring out what you want to do, have conversation with potential guests, do the briefings, record, edit, of course, but then the whole marketing spiel around it, So it becomes a side job, to be quite honest. And I might say a very satisfactory side job, right? But it's not just like...
Again, just sorry to interrupt you, and I'll give it to Russell in a second. We don't do briefings, even if we have guests. We just brief them for like 2 minutes before we start recording, and that's it. When Russell and I record an episode, we come together and we think about, okay, what do we talk about today? And then we talk. And that's it. And we have an idea of the topic in general, and then we just figure out which one of 2 questions do we want to get answered, and then we just go.
That is so much simpler. Oh my God. And also I can see Daniel, there being like, 10 minutes for editing. I'm like, I don't know. For me, it's about 5 to 8 hours, depending on how, like, this is going to be a lot longer.
The thing is, JM, you do, when I listen to your product, I consume it, I hear that. I feel it. Yeah. I feel the time you put in there. So I see you kind of virtually in the front of I see you kind of like in the studio with the music and putting the record on and then, looking out of the window and giving a kind of like a call. So let's reflect on what we were just talking about, and the way you do that, I love it. It's awesome. But there's Casper and we're going, could we even do that? Even if we wanted to, we don't have it in us to really bring this in, select some music that just, people could contemplate about BPM. They're all meditating there. I see these huge amounts of women just kind of like meditating to your voice on BPM. Fantastic product. And, Daniel, I'm sure you have your own followership there as well, with the good mics and the good production. And it really is entertaining. Unfortunately, and that's where I said, definitely your role model, but Casper and I just don't have the time. So we're so happy to somehow, share and get people. And I think one of the big benefits is, being able to get guests on board. Yeah. And really it's something where, that's something where I said, wow, this is really cool. And one of the episodes I heard where you had, I think he's called, is it Van Scott from Interfacing?
Scott Armstrong.
Scott Armstrong. Yeah. That's it. Sorry. Yeah. And that was great because I hadn't talked to him for ages. You had him on board and he was so enthusiastic about what they're doing. And I thought having a show where you have people on board that you really even look up to. We've had some guests where you said, wow, and they're talking to us. You know what I mean? Sometimes just think how long it takes sometimes to get somebody just for half an hour, just an interview or a talk, and here we have a platform where we're getting really interesting people here. I think that's awesome.
And we haven't even invited the big names. You all had Dr. Scheer and Professor van der Aalst and all those luminaries on your shows. We even didn't have that. But maybe before we close out our first segment, where do you see this going? I definitely see a difference between our 3 podcasts. JM and I, anal scripts, whatever. You a little bit more free form. Where do you see this going? Do you think it's a value for the listenership, to say, hey, there is a product out there. It has value. And then the question is, which value? Is it educational? Is it entertaining? Where do you see that going? Or is it just a fad? And then in 2 years from now, we all close down shop and buy a little island and retire? Or how do you see the future of this medium?
I think Christoph is retiring. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I think actually that's a super important point. And I think that's one of the main reasons why Russell and Casper are successful despite their non-capabilities of editing their podcast. The thing is, this BPM bubble is not filled with a lot of podcasts with a lot of knowledge sharing, actually, at least in the German speaking area, at least in Middle Europe. And that's the reason why people kind of need these podcasts, need this mediums where knowledge is shared, where use cases are shared, where experts are introduced and experts can talk. I think that's super important. And I think that's why also the state of the process automation is that successful in the German speaking area. And also, to be very honest, I don't know how this goes for each of us. I just try to enjoy how it is currently. Mm-hmm. Because it's super cool to be one of the pioneers when it's about creating podcasts, creating knowledge in the area of business process management, enterprise architecture, so AI in process management, process automation, that stuff. And as you have mentioned, Roland and JM, how your podcast evolved. You have now a product idea, which we are all curious about, curious to hear about, actually. Daniel, Matusz, and myself, so Daniel and Matusz started to inviting other guests, also experts from the German-speaking area and that stuff. I guess Russell and Caspar also will come up with some new fancy ideas.
What I think is interesting about that is that if you compare it with other media nowadays, you really thinking about, is it all going to break down? Because everything you see can actually be created by AI. And you see funny videos and you see jokes, but it's getting more and more serious. So a lot of marketing messages, communication, positioning is all being done artificially. And it's highly professional, polished. So I think more and more people are going to say, where do I go back? Where do I go to really gain proper facts? And the websites, they're all generated and they're all pinpointed on selling the product, getting the platform positioned. And so ultimately, I think on this like channel, we can be to a certain extent authentic and there speak up, speak truth, hopefully, yeah, and that's one thing I think we all have in common. We all work for certain companies that have commercial interest. I mean, I know, Roland, you always have your thoughts on commercial interest as well by writing books and creating companies and all this stuff. But ultimately, our driving force is not just to talk, let's say, talk fake just to get votes or talk fake just to sell a product, but we want to talk true. And I think that sometime people will be going back to podcasts. And as I said, there will be this authentic touch to it. It says, let's listen to what other people have to say without it being distorted by this big AI wrapper that is around everything. You know, I don't use a filter, but you obviously can see. Daniel looks as if he's using a filter, but
really?
It's real good looks. No, seriously. And I think that, so being authentic and bringing that over in a form that people can actually go there as a safe space where they say, this is undistorted, that this is true. And that I think is
just
really
to add on to
value.
that, Russell, just to quickly add on to that. JM, but what you just said on the whole AI stuff, how I feel very often when I see AI movies, little clips on Instagram or whatever, it still lacks soul. You can feel it's soulless. And that's, I think, one of the things why Russell and I have a handful of recurring listeners for every episode that we do. We simply try to stay authentic.
I think the authentic way is the right way. But also, like, every single topic is currently so fast, it's evolving. It's hard to currently like follow really deeply into any kind of topics, frameworks, and so on. And sharing knowledge, bringing the people together. I think we are 100% community driven, means bringing people together, meaning bringing problems together. And to be like this kind of helping group that the people don't lose the motivation to work in or to educate in BPMN, in the BPMN bubble. So this is like the main reason. And to be in the podcast world, I think we have like two different ways. The way which is like just put it as easy as possible and publish it. and a really high polished, crazy production video podcast with everything. So you have the easy way, which is like mainly driven by one or two persons, or like, which is like personal driven, and the high polish, podcast way, which is then mainly driven by sponsorings, by media and so on. So we are currently in the middle. I think our positions are in the middle, and we have to decide what we want to do. Do we want to be the easy guys, or do we gonna go at this unbelievable marketing media production?
I don't see it black or white. You know, what motivated me, you know, when you think about it, and I think, Daniel, you said it, don't listen to our first 10 episodes. When I look into our statistics, the top 2 episodes are episodes 1 and 2. And maybe that's the fancy naming that we had, like, who are those guys, and why should I care about architecture and process management? Maybe that is it, but those are the 2 best performing that we have. Having said that, everybody needs to start somewhere. And what I found very interesting, if you would have asked me 4 years ago, can you edit audio? Can you edit video? And I literally said, don't. Well, I published it over the summer. Our first shorts, our first tap into video editing, me with iMovie, you know, hooray. So, but you need to start somewhere, right? And now look at this, you know, you writing books, whatever's coming, you know. So I think that personal growth, that is very interesting, you know, for me. But JM, you had another agenda item to bring us out into.
Well, the agenda item is, I want to turn it back to the audience. You're hearing a bunch of podcasters wax poetic about what they love. I want to have you think about what you love. What do you love about content? What type of content do you consume? How do you consume that content? Are you on the treadmill? Are you in your car? Are you simply sitting down with a fine cup of tea in your smoking jacket in your lounge chair and listening to us talk about BPM? What really resonates with you, and why? We'll leave you for a moment to think about your experiences. We'll come back with our second section, a little more of a deep dive into these on our 100 podcaster episode special.
I live in a basement apartment, paying too much rent. I don't go to the big screen movies, I got my phone instead. I'm finding it hard to get it going, but I know I must be going soon. I gotta get out of here. I gotta get out of here.
And welcome back. I think very interesting perspectives, you know. I don't know if I learned something from you guys, to be quite honest, but I know that JM has some questions.
Open. Oh my goodness. You know what, guys, thanks for coming on the show. We hate you, but let's just have a good time anyways. I kid. Guys, I'm having a great time. And one of the things I'd love to get, maybe as advice for me, but also advice for aspiring podcasters, is why don't we go with the top 1 to 2 lessons you've learned over the course of your shows producing podcasts. So something somebody could use, or something that they should know in advance of maybe starting a podcast, or if they have one right now. What would you advise them? So let's start with Christoph and Daniel, then we'll go to Russell and Casper. How about that?
That's super that we always are allowed to start. It makes it super much more easier to ask such difficult questions.
I shall not back away from the difficult questions.
But of course, the old people need more time for thinking, so it's totally understandable.
Be happy that you already recorded with them, because you will never have them on the show again.
Oh boy.
I think so. I have 2 things. And I think at least with one point, Daniel, you will confirm it. I'm 100% sure you will confirm it. But we shall not forget. So we live, besides our podcasts, we live in our own BPM bubble with peers who have a very same opinion probably. And we seldomly meet people who have no understanding or a total different opinion. And it's so every time after an episode is released and we're getting feedback from our listeners, it's so surprising for me what listeners think about this episode, especially when they say, this info, it's super new, it's super helpful. And I'm always thinking myself, shall we say this? Shall we bring this up? Everyone knows about it, kind of. And that's kind of always a very nice and positive surprise to see it's valuable what we're doing here. And the second thing, and JM, Roland, you just mentioned it, just start with it. So when you want to make a podcast, just start with it. It always begins with the first step. Mm-hmm. Just do the first step. And with the time, you will figure out what you can improve, where you can improve. So Daniel, what do you think?
Yeah, I can absolutely support your opinions. What was my biggest learning really in this area of podcast? I think it was, my opinion was it's way easier than it looks like or sounds like, which is not. And Christoph, Matish, and me, we are like three complete different persons, and it was like not as easy to connect each other and to combining three different characters. But in the end, it was like the main reason why it stayed the whole year, and we had a lot of to speak, a lot of different opinions to discuss. For me, is every time really important, or important that people have like any kind any takeaway out of the episode. And so many people are so good structured and speaking to me like, in episode 42 you said this and this. Honestly, I don't know what we said in episode 42.
That sounds familiar.
And it's like our best episodes are the episodes with the best stories, and the story matter. The story matter, the topic matters. And I'm really happy to share, or to have the opportunity to also, for example, you mentioned it, to reach out to Professor Scher or to Professor Wilf Hanast, which is not as easy as a normal guy from the little office. So, but as a podcaster, it was quite easy. So it's cool.
Yeah, you were heavy fanboying in one of those episodes. I remember that. So, but lessons learned, Caspar, Russell, and what have you learned? Where do you think your show will go? Where do you think that the medium will go? Will you just continue until you're old and gray? Oh, wait.
Wow. Listen, I can understand them getting shade from the youngins, but
I'll let the grayest one start. Ooh. Russell?
Oh, yeah. This is... I would say what is important is... don't overthink it, especially from the content. So you need a structure, you need a topic, but I think if what I try to make sure as I get into this like state of mind of like a flow where I just feel comfortable and not thinking so much of the outcome of the podcast, but say, what do I want to talk about? And I think when having guests on the show, it's also really important. Of course, you have professionals like Professor Scher who could talk, freely, but especially when you're having practitioners, inviting them around, is to really give them this feel that it's a comfortable environment. It's a chat. It's not like you have audiences that will be criticizing for what you say, but really creating a safe space for whatever even negative experiences or fears that they have. And that's what I think then really enforces then this authenticity and makes people open up and talk. And then with that rough structure and that cozy environment, I think in the flow, it really is meaningful and the content is great. And that's what you have to look at. Yeah.
I totally agree with that, Russell. The things that I've taken away from our podcast now and the year and a half journey we're into, first and foremost, you need to keep an open mind. You have your opinion. We all have. We're all BPM professionals. That doesn't mean that our opinion is the truth, the only truth. Of course, it's the truth, but it's not the only truth. So you always need to be open about the fact that another opinion might be a very interesting learning point or might be a very good starting point for a conversation. The other one is just to slap back a little bit. I mean, you need to be modest. You're a host. you're not the main attraction. The main attraction is your guest, so to speak. And if we do a podcast just with me and Russell, then we just play hide and seek and say, okay, so who's the main attraction today? So nobody is. So we're very faithful. So we frolic around and we frolic out, so to speak. And then we'll get there. And I think from a BPM perspective, the podcast, I think it will continue to evolve, because even if I look at we did no marketing whatsoever. So we just published it on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and we published it on YouTube. And the only thing we did is a LinkedIn company page and say, listen, we got a new podcast, and that's it. And so we've started to grow some audience. And now we get to the point where they start to ask, like, hey, can you talk about this and that on your podcast? And then I say, okay, so now we're getting into that interactive phase with our audience that might be based on our personal networks that we have on LinkedIn, but it's feeding back now to the podcast. And then I think you can evolve a podcast into much more of a lexicon. So like a collective gathering of knowledge and wisdom that you have of you and your guests.
Yeah, I had that. Yeah. I have two thoughts. So first of all, remind me that I share a book with you. It's called Superfans, by the host of the Smart Passive Income podcast. So either way, I will share that with you. Very interesting, because you see that evolution. The other thing is, I had the same experience. I wrote proposals, where somebody said, "Oh yeah, can you give me a rough outline about your implementation efforts?" And I said, sure. So I fired up Excel and I put in the tasks in there, the work packages. And then I put another column in there. Oh, if you want to listen more, well, that's what's your baseline.com/episode, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And blah, 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 and it's like, oh, cool. I don't need to talk, they just can listen for 20 hours and they know what I want to say, but I think it's helpful. And from my perspective, it clarifies your thinking. If you're forced to make a point, it helps a lot. So I grew a lot over the last couple of years. And my last comment before I ask the next question, Russell, I wholeheartedly agree with you. I think our job as the hosts is to make the guest comfortable. And I hope you felt that when you were guests on our show, that you should feel fine. Because yes, you're the rock stars, and Casper, obviously, because of your wonderful AI generated background, you stick out like.
Oh yeah, I know, but I'll tell you, last week? No, it was the week before when we were in Stuttgart on the All About Process conference, and Russ and I were a guest of the Prozess Philosophen. They made me so comfortable that I actually did the podcast in German, which was really out of my comfort zone. Because I understand it, I can read it, I can speak it a little, but I wasn't sure it was going to be up to that level.
A little.
But a little.
Well, I can say one thing, Roland, about my lessons learned here is that I actually use a really cool trick/tool that I'm fortunate to have, which is I have my mother listen to our podcasts. And the reason why is that she is a smart lady. She's a business owner, an entrepreneur, but her industry is in arts. She's in the arts. She's in an arts management role. So what we're talking about is not something she would have any experience with. And so what I do is I ask her after the shows that she listens to, what did you think? And what I'm not looking for her to go, I got it all. Because that's not realistic. And also that means we've taken away something from people who are actually like experts in the field and need to have a little bit more information. What I love as a response from her is, yeah, I think I'm pretty sure I got most of it. And I'm like, yes, that is the right level. You as somebody who's not involved can understand what we're talking about enough that this is entertaining. But for those who are actually in our industry, they can get something really valuable out of it. And that I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
So Roland, take us to the next question here, because I think we have an important couple questions for folks.
I made up my mind. I will not ask the question that I wanted to ask you, but I want to go to the final section where I shamelessly steal, and I want to build some tension here, famously steal the outros of one of your podcasts. And what I really enjoy is, and now who will be in there? Well, it's the overrated, underrated stuff that the Prozess Philosophen.
That's a wonderful category. Yeah,
we love them. We love them.
It is. I like that. I also like your which process of the week didn't work, but that might be way too long. So let's start with overrated, underrated, overrated, maybe in that way. And to be very, very selfish, I want to start with JM. JM, what do you think is overrated or underrated in what you experience in the topic that we spoke about, or BPM or architecture? What's on your mind?
Yeah, I think that underrated in this time of AI is change management. I think that it's like the first thing people forget to do. They're like, oh yes, new processes, new technology, it will speak for itself, and it just doesn't. There is a practice around this. And Roland likes to say that it doesn't matter how much ink you put on paper or whiteboards full of dry erase markers. If the person behind the screen doesn't care, they won't do it. But in the time of AI, I think we've for some reason forgotten that. So absolutely underrated is the change management discipline in a total. I think overrated. I think that right now there's. Obviously, I think overrated is AI automation tools. I think that there's a lot of promises that are being made. A lot of vendors out there who've tacked the word AI onto what they do, and it isn't AI, and it doesn't do what they say it does. I had a leader that I respected who said, you need to promise 100% and have 70% ready. But I think that it's the opposite. I think they promise 100% and they have like 30% ready. And they're really hoping that the sales cycle will last long enough that they can build the remaining parts. And that's really scary. So the marketing material far outstrips the capabilities. And that makes, for me, a lot of those tools really overrated.
Which brings me to Christoph, who does his living with AI stuff. So Christoph, what are your overrated, underrated topics for today?
So, and I will stick to the topics we discussed in this podcast, because as you listen some of our episodes, and I always try to provoke a little bit with my overrated, underrated. Right. So overrated is when you put too much effort into editing the podcast, in my opinion. But underrated is the effort you put in editing the podcast to get it really good in a really good quality.
One. Yeah.
So editing a podcast is rated. I think that's
it's rated.
Rated R.
R rated. Yeah.
That is the What's Your Baseline After Dark coming soon.
There you go.
And not safe for work. Kasper, what do you think?
I try not to, but besides that, yeah. Well, let's start with underrated. I think that still underrated is that a lot of people still don't understand that the process as a concept is the basis of pretty much everything you do in an organization in one shape or form. It's still very often technology driven, which I think is turning things upside down. So that's underrated for me. The process as a concept is underrated. Overrated is, it's a bit difficult to say, but overrated are a lot of the polished frameworks that are out there that promise you a one-stop shop. It can help you get started for sure, but it will never be a single solution. And once we start to understand that, I think they will be much more effectively used than they are now. That's it.
Yeah.
Other than that, I try not to think, because the world is sometimes a depressing place if you start to think too much.
Yeah, I think there's two comments that I would like to make. So first of all, obviously all the interesting comments that we received for the BPMN episodes that we did, where people said, but I want this, stomp your feet and all that stuff. I think there's a lot of heightened expectations that a framework simply cannot fulfill at all. You can't be everything for everyone. But I'd like to piggyback on your underrated, because what I see is the people who do process, and I know Daniel is burning for that topic. The people who do process, they keep themselves small, right? They don't. They're just like the little gray mouse. Yeah, I do process management, And then you have the rock stars, who just went live with the latest AI, lovable cursor, developed whatever nonsense, right? And they're the big rock stars. And I think that's just wrong, And I had a conversation years ago with Jakob Vorak from the Mining Your Business, Rest in Peace podcast, and I still have a little bit of title envy, by the way. Anyway, so we had the conversation. He was asking like, how much of the fame do you account to the process mining effort? Right. So if you find improvements of $1 million, how much of that should be accounted to you who found it versus the guys who do something with it? And I thought that was a very interesting question, because most people would say, yeah, it was so obvious, we don't need you, and well, they do the heavy lifting. Yeah. We all know how much effort it is to figure out what's wrong, right? So I'd like to have a little shout out to all of those unknown soldiers in the BPM space who try to make sense out of the nonsense that they see in their organizations and try to come up with
underrated for sure.
Underrated, yes.
The unsung heroes of BPM. There you go.
Unsung heroes. Yes. We salute you, friends. But Daniel, why don't we pass it over to you for your overrated and underrated?
Honestly, underrated. The possibility to share knowledge or to the opportunity to getting knowledge and experience. I'm the 30 years old guy with sitting with 5 genius in a digital room and learning from you. So like, it's like unbelievable. It's not, I have to pay so much to get this 1 hour of knowledge which you provide. So this is really, I think we need more podcasts. We need more communities. We need more any kind of potential knowledge and exchange sharing. This would be the most important for me. Absolutely underrated. Overrated. A lot of maturity models in big companies, because there's 4 or 5 are still in the kindergarten level and not in the Champions League. I don't know what. So this is like do a little bit 1 or 2 steps back, look from the top, and what you really see is how crazy I think is the BPM stuff still in the kinder shoes, or like in the small shoes. We have so much to do in the next years, and we are in our small bubble, and in the small bubble we have a lot of good champions. Please give them the stage to show what is possible. And as you mentioned, Roland, we have a lot of good guys in the background. Yeah, this is like my underrated and overrated, but I think you can speak hours about it.
I think Russell needs to wake up and provide it.
Well, as we said, I've waited so long. I've waited
so long.
Exactly. So actually, I'll dig into the one Daniel said. I do have another set as well, but I'd like to just add to that. So I think, to a certain extent, pilots, especially around process optimization and AIs, they are overrated. Yeah. And what is completely underrated is the effort to really take whatever process optimization you thought, any pilot you have, any template you have, and roll it out on a global scale. So everybody's digging into pilots and say, oh, that's fantastic. But then with the effort of change management, taking it through countries and across the globe, that is when the work really starts. And that's something that is completely underrated, how much effort it takes and change management it takes once the technology is actually in a pilot already validated. And so that's where, Daniel, I'm completely with you. The other point I would like to make, and this gets into the BPM nerdiness, what is completely overrated is BPMN. Yeah? But let's get into this. What is completely underrated is the business process model. Yeah. So I think the fundamental process model, in the way where it brings all two aspects together. And we actually even have a company-wide model of how we operate in a company is still super valid, actually, I think even underrated, because people don't think beyond the very limited BPMN notation and what they can set into 1,000 diagrams that are disjunct on some repository. So here, I think this is more the nerdy level of BPM. That's where things have to evolve. Yeah, that's so yesterday. That's so, I see models and diagrams and people are so proud of them. And I'm going, wow, this is rubbish. You have got no idea. You have got no picture of a model of your company on which basis you will be going and doing pilots and optimizing and rolling out. So that's the two topics there where I see there's a good underrated, overrated thing to talk about.
Well, you've listened to JM's and my musings about how we think a BPMN3 standard should evolve, you know, but
and also Kevin Tan and his
don't spoil. I haven't listened yet, so I need to still listen to your latest episode. So don't spoil it.
Yeah, I do have two things that are also in there. So, and it was said to you by you guys before. So overrated. You know, my overrated is what I see in all the topics about AI and about automation and the focus on automation. You know, it's that, to me, sometimes childish belief that technology will solve everything. I don't think so. You know, the wheel didn't solve everything. Inventing the fire didn't involve, didn't put solutions to everything, and so on and so forth. So it's just tools that become more granular, more professional, easier to use, whatever, right? So, and that's obviously a huge buzz around it. So I like when you always say the LinkedIn honeys, you know, I'm one too, on this. I found it so interesting how those 300,000 Bitcoin experts, you know, blockchain experts, within 3 weeks became AI experts. You know, I was just standing there, mouth open, flabbergasted, like, oh, those are smart people. So I think that's the overrated, you know, and I wish the hype will tone down a little bit. And I get the feeling we're getting close to that, right? So it will just become, hopefully, just a new way of automation. And we can have a solid conversation about it. Underrated, in my opinion, is the lack of line of sight, right? People jump, and one of you said it, people jump on proof of concepts and, new technology, or people jump on what I said with Jakob, you know, how much do I count for my little thing? You know, I think what you need to do is you need to have the line of sight end to end. And it's unthankful work to create a process repository, Russell, to your point, you know, it's an even harder work to make it in a structure that people will understand and adapt to and say, oh yeah, we agree on seeing the world like that. And now let's have the honest conversation about where we change, right? And Caspar, I know management of change is one of your favorite topics. Mm-hmm. You know, you need to describe it. You need to figure out what the impact will be, you know, simulation, yada, 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 you know, and I think we'll all get lost in toys.
Just one little addition, Roland, very quickly, because it's a very interesting thing that you say. And going back to Roland's thing, having a repository is very important, but not for the reason so people can tap into it directly. You typically need to find another way to visualize it for the, let's say, the common non-BPM folks to enjoy its benefits. But you need the actual interaction and interdependencies definition that you do to get your management of change and your alignment set up. So there's one repository that serves two purposes. And that is something that a lot of companies, well, that's underrated. So there you go. A lot of companies don't understand that yet.
What you could say as well, the tool providers have overrated the input possibilities. So they're always working on new ways of feeding in the repository. They have completely underrated the necessity to build up more capabilities to read the data, to use it in for certain, as a source of knowledge. How many people are talking about another modeling tool, but they don't even have a good, decent publishing tool? or any way of extracting information out of it. So the in is overrated, the out is under.
And I think that's a good place for us to take a second here and leave it to you. Particularly when you talk about underrated and overrated, our audience, what do you find is overrated in our industry? What do you find is underrated? How do you agree or disagree with what our guests have come up today? And let's come back after a short break and our final thoughts and conclusions for our special episode 100, our podcaster special.
And welcome back. So, guys, first of all, a heartfelt thank you from my perspective, for you guys showing up. And I see it's getting dark where Christoph is, so only the monitor light it shows in his face. You should pay your utility bills, by the way. But thanks for being on the show. Thanks, Casper, for that wonderful lime green background that you have. You really stick out. And thanks, Daniel and Russell, as always, for being the great guests that you are. I loved our episode. It went a little bit differently than I thought, but at the end of the day, I think that was what makes the fun, and I'm curious about what our guests will say if they enjoyed our conversation and if it was worth being the episode 100. So thanks again for being here. But obviously the ultimate question is, and I don't know who wants to start, is, now you heard so much about those wonderful podcasts and those wonderful individuals. Maybe one of you two podcasts each can pick up. How can people reach you? Where can they find you if they say, "Oh, we got enough of that. What's your baseline stuff? Those guys are boring. We want to hear the fresh things." So maybe Casper or Russell, one of you picks it up. Where should you go?
Well,
how can you be found?
First and foremost, you can go to the BPM360podcast.com landing page. That's number one. Or you go to LinkedIn for the same name, BPM360 Podcast. There's a company page. If all of that fails, you simply reach either Russell or myself on LinkedIn. You're good to go. That's it.
And then let's pass it over to Daniel and Christoph.
Casper and Russell are our main influencers on LinkedIn. So if you want to reach out to the Prozess Philosophen, which is an unbelievable German name, type it into Spotify or any kind of podcast platform. If you have any kind of compliments, send it to Christoph. If you have things which you can improve, send it to me. And reach out.
That's why I'm not receiving any messages regarding our podcast.
I thought he wanted to say, if there's compliments, send them to Christoph. If you have complaints, keep them for yourself.
I expected them to send it to Matos. He's not here.
Strategy.
That's a good one. Yeah, you can't defend himself. I love it. Well, once again, compliments, JM at What's Your Baseline, complaints, Roland at what'syourbaseline.com. And that's a great way to end the episode here, folks. 100 episodes. Our audience, we cannot thank you enough for coming along with us on this crazy ride. We've seen guests from all over the world, ideas beyond our own mental capacity, and it's been an incredible journey so far. So once again, huge shout out to everyone, and also a huge thank you to our guests today. They are brothers in arms, people who make the kinds of content we do. So please check out BPM360 and Prozess Philosophen. They're great. I love their episodes. I don't entirely understand the German, but that's all right. The good cheer is what matters.
Entirely, JM? Entirely?
At all. But listen, go to what'syourbaseline.com, go to our website, shoot us an email, go to LinkedIn, follow us, comment, share. We'd love to hear from more folks. As we've been saying over and over again, community is number one, and we are very thankful for that. But until we hear from you and until our next episode, I've been J.M. Erlandson.
I've been Christoph Piller.
I've been Daniel Matka.
I've been Russell Gomersel.
I'm still Casper Jans.
Yeah, and my name is still Roland Volt.
And we will see you in the next one.